The classroom floated in low orbit above Salus Prime, its glass walls curving around a distant star like a crown of fire. Inside, 30 students from 12 different species sat silently, absorbing the last lecture of the rotation cycle. Neural uplinks glowed dim blue across their temples. No one talked. No one dared. Except the human. "After school, I'm going to the Karnak's Wastes," said Jace Marin, 15 Earth years old, in a tone so casual it shattered the silence like a dropped blade. Chairs shifted. Eye stalks twitched. A tail coiled tight. One girl, the insected Valari, clicked her mandibles and whispered, "He's joking." He wasn't. Jace didn't flinch. He leaned back in his seat, chewing a stim gum pellet like he hadn't just announced he was heading into the deadliest ungoverned zone in this quadrant of the galaxy. The Karnak's wastes weren't just forbidden. They were off the Council's grid entirely, an irradiated planetary shard orbiting a red dwarf, crawling with biomex, ghost code, and predators that didn't show up on sensors. No one went there. Not even bounty guilds. The instructor, a droning synth archivist named Coral, finally paused, his mechanical eye tracking the class. "Mr. Marin." "Clarify," Coral said in a flat, metallic voice. "I've got a meet scheduled," Jace said. "Can't reschedule it." A blue-skinned Adraxian blinked nervously. "Meet with who?" Jace shrugged. "Someone who owes my dad answers." That shut the class up harder than before. After class, 3 students followed him into the corridor. Not to stop him. Not to help. To watch. One was Karlik, a karate brute built like a collapsed neutron star. The second was Lumia, a whisper-thin girl from Selira who hadn't spoken more than 5 words all term. The third, unsurprisingly, was Ryle Vaughn. Ryle wasn't the strongest. Or the fastest. But he was the most dangerous. Because he was the smartest. "You really think you're gonna come back?" Ryle asked. Jace didn't stop walking. Ryle stepped into his path. "This isn't one of your Earth War stories, Marin. This is suicide." Jace's expression didn't change. "My dad went missing in the Wastes 2 years ago," he said. "His signal went dark. Nobody looked. Not the Council. Not your genius trackers. Nobody." Ryle frowned. "Because it's Karnak's. No one survives Karnak's." Jace tapped the inside of his wrist. A blue holographic glyph flared, handmade, not Council issue. Ancient Earth script burned beneath it. "My dad left this encrypted. It activated on my 15th birthday. Coordinates. Audio. Instructions. Instructions? To finish what he started." Ryle stepped back. Not in fear, calculating. "Then you're not going to look for him," he said. "You're going to finish a human mission." Jace nodded once. "And that scares you, doesn't it?" The ship he took wasn't Council approved. It was human engineered. A scratched-up, short-range interceptor with mismatched thrusters and no AI co-pilot. Just Jace, a patched flight console, and his father's decoded message playing on loop. "Son, if you're hearing this, I failed. I went into Karnak's for the truth, and they knew I would. That's why they let me go. You'll find it in the vault beneath Site Theta. But be warned, what we found wasn't alien. It was us. And we were never meant to return." Jace didn't react the first time. Or the third. But by the 5th playthrough, his hands were clenched on the yoke. The vault wasn't just a mystery. It was a warning. Descent into Karnak's was chaos. The planetary atmosphere clawed at the ship like it wanted to erase the memory of metal. Red storms howled through irradiated chasms. Lightning flickered in slow motion, bent by gravity tides. Jace stayed steady. Manual override. No AI correction. Just instinct. The moment his ship touched down, he shut everything off. Power meant attention. And attention meant death. The surface of Karnak's was worse than the stories. Ruins taller than towers jutted from the ground like broken fangs. The air shimmered with heat mirages and dead data. Jace slipped through the skeletal remains of what once might have been a research colony, long since devoured by rust and rot. Every step was watched. He could feel it. Not by creatures. Not by machines. But by something that didn't blink. It read intentions. And Jace had one. Site Theta was beneath a collapsed mesa. He found the entry point buried under rubble, just as his father's log predicted. The keypad was fossilized. The override code worked anyway. The vault hissed open. Inside, cold light. Silent air. And a single chamber lined with ancient cryopods. Most were broken. One was open. And in the center of the room stood a console with a flickering earth seal from a pre-council era. Something no alien species had ever seen firsthand. Jace approached. Inserted the drive his father left. The vault lit up like it had been waiting. Lines of code scrolled across the walls. A 3D projection flickered to life. Human DNA. Gen 6. Altered. Weaponization aborted. Archive hidden. And one final line. They were afraid of what we could become. Jace's breath caught. This wasn't just about his father. This was about all of them. Earth hadn't been forgotten. It had been deliberately buried. Outside the vault, movement. Fast. Unnatural. Jace grabbed his father's sidearm from his belt. Not to fight, just to be ready. But the thing that stepped into view wasn't a biomech. It wasn't a predator. It was a humanoid. Eyes like shattered glass. Voice like gravel against metal. You shouldn't be here. Jace raised the pistol. Neither should you. The figure smiled. Slowly. I was born here. Who are you? I'm what happens when they try to erase a species, and fail. Jace lowered the weapon. Not in surrender. In understanding. The vault doors hissed shut behind him. Outside, Karnax began to shift, its heat signatures pulsing like blood waking from frost. Jace tapped his wrist. Com recorded one sentence. I know what we are now. Then he turned toward the dark. And walked deeper in. The vault doors sealed behind Jace like the planet was swallowing him whole. He followed the glass-eyed figure through a narrow corridor beneath Site Theta. The air buzzed, not with energy, but memory. Lights flickered with the rhythm of an old heartbeat, artificial and slow. The figure moved like it didn't fear the dark. Jace kept pace, weapon holstered, but hand near it. You going to tell me your name? He asked. The figure glanced over his shoulder. You first. Jace Marin. Terran Exchange. That made the stranger stop. He turned full on. Your council aligned? Was. The figure said. That explains the scent. Jace blinked. Scent? You smell like compromise. They reached a chamber that hadn't seen light in decades. The walls were lined with containment tanks, each housing partial bodies, genetic mosaics. Hybrid prototypes. Some human. Some not. All failed. Jace stepped closer to one of the tanks. The creature inside looked almost human, until he saw the extra spine running down its back. Biofusion? He asked. Early attempts, the stranger said. They tried to upgrade humanity by stitching in alien traits. It never worked. Why not? Because they were trying to change us. Not unleash us. Jace looked up. They? Who's they? The figure stepped into the center of the room, where an old council insignia lay scorched into the floor. You think the Vasari, the Korati, the council, they discovered humans by accident? No. They bred you. Seeded Earth as a control. Watched how you handled war, collapse, survival. Jace shook his head. You're lying. No, the figure said. I'm remembering. You're the one who's just waking up. Jace turned away. He needed air. Space. Something that didn't reek of betrayal. He walked back toward the vault's entry, pacing. The stranger followed at a distance. You're not ready for this. The voice echoed. Jace stopped. Ready for what? To find out I'm some cosmic science project? A lab rat with a trigger finger? You're not a rat, the figure said quietly. You're the outcome. The anomaly they can't replicate. That's why they buried this place. Jace turned eyes hard. Why are you still here? I'm a fail-safe. Jace drew the sidearm. Meaning? If any human ever found Site Theta, the figure said, my orders were to test them. Test me how? By giving you a choice. Back in the main vault, the console had shifted. New data scrolled across the screen, faster now, less guarded. Secondary protocol active. Genetic cross-mapping, Jace Marin, verified. Clearance level, access granted. Unlocking archive, phantom memory. Jace froze. Phantom memory? The figure stepped closer. It's not data. It's imprint. DNA coded. Memory that can only be seen, not stored. From who? Your father. And everyone before him. Jace stared at the console. A slot opened, just wide enough for blood. Of course it would want blood. Jace hesitated. Then pricked his finger. The vault pulsed. And the room dissolved around him. He saw Earth, before the council ever arrived. Nations warring. Cities burning. But not for resources. For freedom. He saw the first contact, hidden, controlled, manipulated. Humans thinking they'd made a new discovery. In truth, it was a check-in. The Council's real directive wasn't peace. It was control. And humanity had broken the algorithm. Their unpredictability. Their refusal to die quietly. Their obsession with meaning. They weren't supposed to make it past the 21st century. And yet here they were. 13 centuries later. Still standing. Still defiant. Jace gasped. The vision faded. He collapsed to one knee. The figure stood over him. Now you see, it said. They returned to the surface. Karnax's sky had shifted. Storms pulsed blue now. The kind of blue you didn't get from weather, only from scanners failing. Someone was coming. I triggered a proximity alert on my way in, Jace said. Probably Council scouts. The figure nodded. Then we don't have long. You said I had a choice. Yes. You can broadcast what you've seen. Tell the galaxy. Reveal everything. And the other? You bury it again. Walk away. Let the lie stand. Jace stared out over the horizon. The ruins. The shattered vault entrance behind him. He saw his father's face. Heard that last message again. They were afraid of what we could become. He turned to the figure. I'm not afraid. The figure smiled for the first time. Then you're ready. Jace boarded his ship. Slid the archive crystal into the transmitter. His hand hovered over the send command. He paused. Because once this went out, there would be no pulling it back. The Council would come. So would others. Earth would become more than just a historical anomaly. It would become evidence. And maybe a target. But silence wasn't safety anymore. He hit transmit. A single sentence went out, echoing across every open channel. We were never your experiment. We are your consequence. Back at the school on Salus Prime, the message arrived mid-lesson. The instructor paused. Students stared. And the moment the transmission ended, alarms began to blare. Because Earth had just declared its memory. And the galaxy would never be the same. The bounty hit before Jace's ship even reached orbit. Every channel, every relay, every bounty board across the outer systems flashed the same image, his face, young and firelit, overlaid with a red glyph. Detain. Do not engage. Class 4 breach, cultural subversion. Council priority black. No charges. No trial. Just silence in the shape of a verdict. Jace Marin had crossed a line no human had ever dared approach. He hadn't just uncovered the truth. He'd broadcast it. By the time he re-entered Salus Prime's atmosphere, the sky was already crawling with surveillance drones. The Council hadn't sent ships, yet, but they didn't have to. The school was their territory. His shuttle cloaked low, bypassing the port and landing in the only blind zone he trusted, the maintenance trench behind the admin tower. Every bolt, Every fuel stain on that wall was familiar. He used to play here after classes. Now he was sneaking back like a fugitive. He stepped out into the dry twilight, hood pulled, pulse ticking loud in his ears. Inside the academy, everything had changed. Security doubled. Student chatter muted. Metal-eyed instructors walked the halls not with clipboards, but with scanners in hand. He moved fast, ducking between blind corners, dodging cameras. He had one stop. Not to run. Not to hide. To retrieve the one thing that could still protect him, the uncut version of the archive. He'd only transmitted a summary. But the full archive, the one with locations, signatures, and DNA logs, was still inside the locker in his shared dorm room. And someone else knew it. He entered the corridor quietly. The dorm door was ajar. He froze. Footsteps inside. He moved, fast and quiet, slipped a mirrored shard from his wrist cuff and angled it toward the crack. Inside, Ryle Vaughn. Jace's old rival. Brilliant. Dangerous. Opportunistic. Ryle was holding the crystal. Not yet activating it. Jace stepped in. You open that, he said. You better be ready for everything it shows. Ryle turned, startled, but not surprised. Thought you'd be halfway to the outer belts by now, he said. I don't run. Could have fooled me. Jace closed the door behind him. Give it. Ryle turned the crystal in his hand. You really think this is going to help humans? He asked. You just declared your species an anomaly. You really think the Council will let that stand? No, Jace said. But we've never needed permission to exist. Ryle laughed, sharp and bitter. You're not a revolutionary, Marin. You're a trigger. You think you've started a movement, but you just started a war. Jace stepped closer. If war is what comes next, then so be it. But not because of a lie. Not because we let someone else write our beginning. For a moment neither moved. Then Ryle handed the crystal over. It's too late, anyway, he said. Jace frowned. What do you mean? Ryle looked at him, really looked. They're not the only ones listening, Jace. 15 minutes later, the lights across Faceless Prime dimmed. Not a blackout. Not sabotage. A pulse. Old. Deep. Not from the Council. From beneath. Across the quadrant, long dormant satellites blinked online. Not Council property. Pre-Council tech. Earth-made. The kind designed for wartime. And every single one of them was now looking for Jace. Not to kill. To reach him. Because Jace hadn't just unlocked a secret. He'd activated a protocol. Back at the trench, he met with the only person who would still answer his call. Valari. Her insected limbs folded tight as she stared at the crystal he handed her. This is dangerous. I know. You broadcast it already. I didn't release it. She clicked softly. Why now? Because I think this thing just woke up half a dozen buried defense arrays across 3 systems. Jace said. And I need to know why it's responding to me. Valari tapped a command into her uplink. Give me an hour. You've got 20 minutes. 17 minutes later, she looked up. You're not a fluke, she said. You're a trigger key. This archive? It's not just information. It's a signal interface. It connects to dormant relic systems seeded across Council space. Seeded by who? Valari hesitated. You won't like the answer. Say it. By Earth. Before the Council ever discovered it. Jace stood still. They knew. He whispered. They prepared. She corrected. He stared down at the crystal. This isn't a revelation. No, she said. It's a countermeasure. Outside, the first real warship arrived. Not Council marked. Not friendly. Zarthus Sovereignty-class dreadnought. A race that hadn't been seen in open space in nearly a century. Because they weren't allowed to be. The Council had declared them extinct. Now they were broadcasting. 2. Terran genetic artifact. We heard your signal. We remember Earth. We never forgot. Valari's eyes widened. You just woke the dead. No, Jace said quietly. I reminded them we're still alive. The school was evacuated by morning. Not for safety. For control. Jace and Valari slipped out beneath the chaos, shielded by the confusion. They didn't go into hiding. They went off-world. To the first of the Earth relic sites shown on the archive. Because if the galaxy was going to burn, it wouldn't be from chaos. It would be from clarity. The relic site didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a prayer. Buried beneath a shattered moon in orbit around the dying star of Aller-9, the Earth-seated construct was silent. No lights, no heat, no defenses. Just a hollow structure carved into obsidian rock, half submerged in red dust. Jace stepped into the airlock and waited as Valari adjusted the frequency scrubbers. This place isn't listed on any council chart, she said. Exactly, Jace replied. It was never meant to be found by them. Only by us. Inside, the hallways were cold and breathless. Ancient Terran architecture, sharp lines, modular plating, embedded glyphs in a language even Jace's implant struggled to interpret. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. Not gravity. Expectation. At the center of the chamber stood a vertical pillar of black metal. Smooth. Seamless. A single red ring pulsed at its center. It recognized him. The ring widened. Authorization, Jace Marin, bloodline match. Protocol Sigma release initiated. Valari backed away. What is this? I think it's the thing they were afraid we'd become, Jace said. A beam of light descended from the ceiling. Slow. Focused. And from it formed a holographic figure, female, aged, dressed in pre-council military black. Her voice was calm, but carried command. Designation, Commander Arya Marin. Soul Defense Network. Message recorded, 687 years before present galactic standard. Jace's breath caught. His grandmother. The one he was told had died before Earth ever joined the Council. She looked straight at him. If you're watching this, we failed. Valari remained silent, antennae curled tight. Commander Marin continued. Earth's integration into the Galactic Council was not diplomacy. It was containment. The moment they realized we wouldn't follow their code, they chose to absorb us. Gently. Quietly. Through education, culture, alliance. Her voice grew colder. We let them. Because we wanted peace. We believed in unity. But they didn't come for peace. They came for our silence. Jace stepped forward. Then why build this? She smiled faintly. Because we believed someone would survive long enough to remember. The projection shifted. Dozens of locations lit up across a star map. Red nodes pulsing across distant systems. Earth had planted seeds everywhere. Not ships. Not weapons. Voices. Each node contained records, technology, memories. Hidden pieces of history, buried beneath council infrastructure. Waiting. Jace stared at them. Why now? The hologram responded to his voice. Because the signal's been triggered. Earth is no longer a passive archive. It's awake. They left the moon an hour later. But they didn't leave alone. When they exited the system, 3 ships awaited them, old Terran dreadnoughts, long thought destroyed in the early assimilation campaigns. They weren't ruins. They were operable. And they'd been listening. Valari stared through the viewport. How are they still functioning? Jace looked at the red-lit consoles. Because they were never decommissioned. Just hidden in time. One of the ships hailed them. To Jace Marin. We have been waiting. He responded without hesitation. Then follow me. The moment their fleet crossed into neutral territory, the Council responded. But not with words. With a blockade. At the edge of sailless space, 40 ships formed a wall, diplomatic vessels, research carriers, gunships. No insignias. Just power and posture. Raoul Vaughn stood in the forward bay of one of them. He'd been promoted. Student to liaison. A puppet with a sharp tongue. Jace transmitted a live message. You wanted silence. But Earth remembers. Ryle's reply was clinical. You're destabilizing everything. I'm stabilizing truth, Jace replied. You're just afraid of what comes next. You release that full archive, Ryle warned, and you'll set off a cultural cascade. Uprisings. Schisms. Wars. Jace stared into the camera. That's not on me. That's on the people who built a galaxy out of lies. Then he broadcast the complete archive. Unedited. It went everywhere. To colonies. To outer moons. To abandoned relay hubs that hadn't blinked in centuries. To planets the Council had integrated without consent. And finally, back to Earth. The fallout was immediate. Several minor species declared independence from Council oversight within days. Rebellions that had smoldered in silence for generations ignited overnight. But the real shift wasn't political. It was emotional. For the first time, entire civilizations looked at humans not as volatile anomalies, but as mirrors. In the aftermath, the Council tried to contain it. They held emergency sessions, issued press statements, blamed rogue Earth factions. But they were too late. Because on Earth, for the first time in 400 years, something ancient stirred. The home signal. It had been dormant since the first Terran satellite left the atmosphere. It blinked once. Then pulsed again. Then began transmitting. We were never yours to control. We are the echo you tried to bury. And now we speak in full voice. Jace stood on the ridge above his old school, overlooking Salus Prime's horizon. It no longer felt like a colony. It felt like a crossroad. Valari stood beside him, quiet. You know they'll come, she said. All of them. Council, sovereigns, even the ones who still believe the lie. He nodded. Let them. What if you're wrong? He looked up at the stars. I'm not, she asked. What do we do now? Jace smiled faintly. Now, he said. Now we teach the galaxy what it means when a human says, I'm going home after school. Final image. The galaxy viewed from far above, dozens of red-lit relics activating in sequence across the stars, their pulses syncing like a heartbeat rediscovered. An Earth, once isolated, once dismissed, blazing bright in the dark. Not a relic. A signal.